I work at OCAD, and it was nice to hear our institution mentioned a little bit earlier when we were talking about the sort of DFI programme that we've just launched at graduate level, and we're due to launch at undergraduate level next September. One of the great luxuries about being sort of situated at an art school is we tend to have a high number of female students. For example, my first graduating game student just got a game design job in the social games industry, so I'm really excited to be supporting women and girls going out into the game design and development industry. So what I wanted to talk about today is feminism, if you like, and in some ways one of the reasons for that is I think that we're at this very sort of particular post-feminist point where in some ways it's become a dirty word, and so I want to do some sort of excavation work in terms of reclaiming the phrase and the history. I think secondly, technology and games as maybe being one particular sort of killer app of technological development tends to be quite short-sighted. So I'm sort of pointing or want to point off at a sort of a couple of sort of historical tropes as we move forward to a diverse and inclusive workforce. So feminism arrives in waves, and so from the suffragettes onwards, the movement has pushed for equity in surges of activity that is not dissimilar to the cycles of innovation in the video game console market. The current rhetoric around post-feminism can be seen as a strategy to derail the feminist project. At best, we hear the job is done, that we have achieved equity, while this is patently not the case. At worst, the word feminism has been linked to a particularly persistent, rabid, radical stereotype. Yet look around this room, full of powerful, creative and remarkable women. Feminist scholar Donna Haraway's 1985 manifesto invoked the figure of the cyborg in imagining a more equitable future in our ongoing evolution into a technologically augmented society. As already machine, already cyborgs, she suggests that women take active ownership of writing the power structures of the future. In Haraway's words, feminists must unite behind an ironic dream of a common language for women in the integrated circuit. So we have this sort of prehistory of creative voices in technology and games specifically as a model for women working with creating and recreating sort of technological sort of power structures. In argument to the point that feminism is a done deal, we can see very specific figures to prove that that isn't the case. So we have significant pay gaps still at play in North America. And yet one of the things that's sort of most interesting, I think, about these specific set of fairly recent figures is to look at the bottom 2 points, which is that women are achieving equity through feminist mechanisms in the Arab Spring and in Africa. And so in sort of traditionally regarded sort of third world areas, quotas are being successful in achieving equity of representation. So in Tunisia, women's rights activists have secured a commitment for 50-50 representation, and in Rwanda, a post-war, a post-genocide state, if you like, 51% of parliamentarians are women. So I think us in the West have to look at success in other parts of the world and really understand that feminism these days is a sort of truly global challenge, and achieving equity is not something that we should pay lip service to in the supposed comfort of the West, but that we need to look at successful models globally in order to achieve our objectives and our aims. So feminist media studies, if you like, has looked over time at issues of representations of women in media and identified specific sort of ideological structures, if you like, to be targeted in interventionist work. But possibly most important of all is what we're here to celebrate today, which is the ongoing support of female voices as active creators of our digital futures. As stated, who are the Riot Girls? And we can look, probably as I already sketched, more productively for feminists at work in BRIC countries and in Middle Eastern countries to see where the power surges of sort of activism and feminist activism are succeeding. And maybe we can take heart from that. Maybe we can look at the events of the past year and see that technology is finally coming of age as a tool for political and social action. Traces of feminism continue, often dropping below a visible horizon, but days like today, we can maybe imagine the popular rise of this movement once again, and my call to action for you all is to consider how you can continue to support women of all ages to succeed in our most creative of creative industries. The game industry is young enough and successful enough to challenge the very narrow image of women and girls put forward by the wider media and entertainment industry. Why shouldn't the game industry be a model for other media sectors? So what's my problem? I'm sketching an optimistic picture, but we're seeing a representation of women in game development and computer science more widely drop significantly. So not enough girls are engaging in making technology at each and every stage of their lives. There's a danger of games becoming a mainstream media. So while on one level we celebrate the broadening of our beloved space, it's important that it doesn't fall victim to this sort of very narrow view of women that mainstream media put forward. And finally, as I said before, the need to reclaim feminism as a word is central to us not forgetting the progress that feminism has given us and how far we've moved forward from our mothers and their mothers before them. And this is a responsibility for all of us as mothers to help our children move forward. The main reason I'm here is to sort of announce a project called Feminists in Gaming, which I'm a sort of co-instigator on with Dr. Jen Jensen at York University. Her work and her group's work will be represented a little bit later by Nick. And this is a 2-year SHIRK network development grant, which affords us many opportunities to take some of this work seeded by Nexus forward over the next couple of years. What I've hoped that I've started to point to is not only do we forget the work that's happened before, but feminism might make wins and progress, but without ongoing care and attention, things tend to get worse and fall backwards. So it's very important to our Feminists in Game project that we build a sustainable and ongoing resource for researchers, for workers, for knowledge workers, for creative people moving forward in this particular space. So broadly, if nothing else, my presence here is an invitation for everybody here to get in touch if you are interested in becoming part of this ongoing network and to consider projects, to consider workshops, to consider research that we can help support as we move forward. So the framing for Feminists in Games, if you like, is looking at the underlying principles and mechanisms that have caused gender imbalances, to look at the slippage that I've just described in terms of when women and feminists make steps forward, why does that move fall back again? And so we're sort of interested in transferring and sort of sharing this knowledge, to put a line in the sand, to create a sustained and sustainable resource for future generations. From a cultural and educational standpoint, we're interested in what girls and boys, as well as men and women, playing. Obviously, a lot of research on play preference difference sort of posits an ideal woman or ideal girl. Women and girls are half of the population and are as diverse within and of themselves as are men. So any type of sort of totalitarian sort of statement of what a woman is problematic and difficult. We're interested in how education can give women and girls a more equal foundation, if you like, a literacy and access point to ongoing active and creative involvement in this space. What I wanted to do then, to wrap up rather quickly, is simply to remind ourselves that every technology is a reproductive technology. As a self-acclaimed nerd, this work is important, and I define the right to define myself and my equity to program, to code, and to create in this particular space, as should all women and as should all people. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce 2 projects, that look at models and people who have been actively engaging in feminist interventionist work, if you like. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce Kirsten from Silicon Sisters, who's going to come and talk about some of their work in Vancouver. Thank you.